The rain fell in thin, insistent needles as Alara stepped off the bus, the hiss of pneumatic doors fading behind her like the exhale of something mechanical and tired. She tugged her hood higher, her fingers stiff with cold, and scanned the quiet, gray stretch of Maple Lane. It hadn't changed. Same crooked lampposts, same shuttered windows, same suffocating stillness wrapped around the houses like plastic wrap over forgotten leftovers. She hadn't been back in 6 years, but the town had the unnerving consistency of a dream revisited. Details familiar, but off, like a photograph faded in all the wrong places. A car rumbled past, its headlights slashing through the mist, illuminating a figure leaning against a street sign. Alara's pace slowed. The figure straightened. Dark coat, too thin frame. That same crooked grin that once made her want to punch him or kiss him. Sometimes both. Figured you'd take the late one, Cashin said, hands stuffed in his coat pockets, eyes shadowed under the brim of a battered cap. You always did like to show up when everyone's already gone home. You waiting for me? She asked, unsure if she was annoyed or relieved. He shrugged. Not much else to do in a place like this. They walked in silence, the kind that wasn't exactly comfortable, but not hostile either, just unfinished. The kind that waited for someone to be brave enough to say the thing they'd been avoiding. You look like hell, he said finally. Good. That's how I feel. A smirk tugged at his mouth, but it didn't stay long. Why now? Alara didn't answer immediately. The question wasn't simple. The letter had arrived 3 weeks ago. No return address. Just 7 words. You should come home. Before it starts. She had torn it in half, thrown it away, then dug it out of the trash the next morning. The handwriting was unmistakable, her brother's. But that was impossible. Caleb had died 6 years ago. Someone's playing a game, she muttered, more to herself than to Cashin. And I need to know why. Cashin stopped walking. You think it's a prank? She turned to face him. What else could it be? There are stories, he said. Things people say started happening not long after Caleb. Stories, she repeated flatly. He nodded. People disappearing. Lights in the woods. That weird humming noise no one can trace. And now you're back. Alara folded her arms, partly for warmth, partly to keep herself from shaking. What are you saying? Cashin hesitated, then lowered his voice. I'm saying I don't believe in ghosts, but I also don't believe in coincidences. Not in this town. They reached the house, a sagging 2-story relic of peeling paint and warped windows. Her childhood home, though nothing about it felt like that anymore. As she stepped onto the porch, the boards groaned beneath her feet, and a flicker of movement caught her eye in the upstairs window. She froze. Did you see that? She whispered. Cashin didn't answer. He was already climbing the porch steps behind her, jaw set. Let's get this over with. The door creaked open with a reluctant groan. The inside smelled of dust and something subtler, an acrid, bitter tang beneath the surface. She wrinkled her nose. Electric's still working, he said, flipping the switch by the door. The overhead light buzzed to life, casting weak illumination over the front hallway. Everything was where it had been left. Her mother's coat still on the hook. A crooked painting of a lake hanging above the radiator. And, most unsettlingly, Caleb's sneakers at the bottom of the stairs, like he might come clattering down at any moment. Alara moved past him quickly. I'll check his room. Cashin didn't follow. I'll wait here. The stairs groaned under her weight. Each step creaked in memory, of arguments, of laughter, of the silence that came after Caleb's accident. At the top, she paused outside his door. It was closed. She hadn't expected that. It had been open when they found him. Her fingers hovered over the doorknob. Then, before she could second-guess herself, she pushed. The room was dark, lit only by the flicker of the hallway light behind her. Dust motes swirled in the air. His bed was made, desk untouched, but on the pillow lay an envelope, her name, written in the same hand that had penned the first letter. She snatched it up and tore it open. Inside, a single photograph. It was of her, taken from behind, standing in the woods behind the house. She was wearing the same coat she wore now, and at the edge of the frame, barely visible, was a shadowed figure, watching. A chill lands down her spine. She spun around, heart thudding. The hallway was empty. "Cashin," she called. No answer. She stepped back into the hall. "Cashin!" Still nothing. Then the humming began. Low, vibrating, like the sound of a distant engine, but deeper. It seemed to come from beneath the floorboards and from the walls, and from inside her own chest. The house groaned in response, the overhead light dimming. She stumbled down the stairs. "Cashin!" He was gone. The front door hung open. Rain had started again, tapping on the porch like fingers on a drum. Ilera stood there, frozen, the photograph clenched in her hand. Then, from outside, a voice, barely audible over the rain, but unmistakably familiar, called her name, Caleb. And just like that, she stepped into the storm. The rain was colder than she remembered. Sharp, slicing through her like tiny shards of glass as Ilera crossed the porch. Wind whipped at her coat, plastering into her legs, and the photograph, now damp in her hand, threatened to tear along its center crease. But she didn't stop, not even when the front gate creaked in protest as she shoved it open. The voice had been real. She was certain of it. Not a memory, not a delusion. Real. The street was empty. Cashin was nowhere in sight, nor was anyone else. Just a steady downpour and the eerie glow of the street lamps bleeding into the mist. The town had always felt like it was holding its breath. Now it felt like it had already exhaled, empty, spent, and waiting for something worse. She turned toward the woods. The trees loomed like sentinels, their silhouettes shifting in the wind, branches reaching like arms too long for their trunks. Ilera paused at the edge, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. But she stepped forward, each footfall squelched in the mud, the scent of wet earth rising around her. The humming grew louder. It pulsed now, rhythmic, almost organic, a beat that didn't come from any machine she could name. Her flashlight, pulled from her coat pocket, flickered weakly before steadying. The narrow beam swept across twisted underbrush and slick, moss-covered stones. And then it caught something. Footprints, boot-shaped, deep, still filling with water, leading deeper into the woods. She followed. Branches clawed at her sleeves. Water dripped from the leaves above, tapping her hood like impatient fingers. The sound of her own breath seemed foreign, too loud in the charged silence. She gritted her teeth, kept moving. One step, another, eyes scanning, muscles taut. Then movement. Ahead, between two trees, a flash of dark fabric. Ilera quickened her pace, dodging a low-hanging branch. "Cashin!" she called, though she already knew it wasn't him. No answer, but the figure didn't run. It waited. As she drew closer, the flashlight caught a face. She froze. It was Caleb, not as he'd been in the hospital, broken and pale, but whole, older, wearing the same coat he'd always worn in winter, only now it hung differently, like it didn't belong to him anymore. His eyes met hers, calm, unreadable. Her breath hitched. "You're not real." He tilted his head. "I'm exactly what you came to find." Ilera's heart pounded so hard it hurt. She wanted to step forward, to close the gap, but her feet wouldn't move. "You died." "I did," he said. "But that doesn't mean I stayed gone." A gust of wind rattled the canopy, sending a flurry of leaves down around them. Ilera gripped the flashlight tighter. "What is this? Some kind of illusion? A trick?" "No trick." His voice was low, steady. "But you need to understand, this isn't just about me." "Then what is it about?" Caleb's gaze shifted behind her. She turned. Cashin stood at the edge of the clearing, face pale, soaked through. His eyes were wide. "Ilera," he said, "we need to go. Now." "He's here," she whispered, barely able to believe it. Cashin's expression darkened. "That's not Caleb." She looked back. The figure hadn't moved, but something was changing. His features began to flicker, just for a moment, like a signal breaking. The shape held, but something beneath it writhed, like a shadow trying on a human skin. Ilera took a step back. "Caleb." It watched her, still and silent. "He's part of it," Cashin said, voice low. The humming, the disappearances. It mimics what it thinks you want. That's how it draws people in. But why Caleb? Because he was the first. The humming intensified, deeper now, resonating in her bones. The trees shivered, though no wind stirred them. The thing wearing Caleb's face began to walk forward, slow, purposeful. Ilara raised the flashlight. Don't come any closer. It paused. I can help you understand, it said. But not here. Not like this. Come with me. Cashin stepped beside her, hand on her arm. We leave. Now. Or we end up like the others. She didn't want to believe him. Didn't want to believe her brother's face was just a mask. But the thing before her no longer blinked, no longer breathed. And the longer she stared, the more wrong it looked. We're not going anywhere with you, she said. The mask dropped. The face shifted, splitting like fabric stretched too thin. What remained was something featureless, humanoid in outline only, a body made of dark matter, constantly shifting, as if its shape resisted the concept of form. Cashin pulled her back as it lunged. They ran. Branches whipped past. Roots clawed at their feet. The forest became a blur of motion and noise, the humming now a roar, vibrating the trees, the ground, their very teeth. Something howled behind them, high-pitched and furious. The sound of something denied. The edge of the woods came too fast. They burst through the trees, breathless, wild-eyed, crashing onto the slick grass behind Ilara's house. She slammed the back door shut behind them, flipping the lock with shaking hands. They leaned against the kitchen wall, panting. Cashin spoke first. We're in over our heads. Ilara nodded, unable to speak. Her hands still trembled. She dropped the soaked photograph onto the counter. It landed with a wet slap. Cashin's gaze fixed on it. That's from today? She nodded again. I didn't take it. He stared at the photo, his jaw tightening. Then someone or something is watching, has been. Outside, the rain slowed. The humming faded. But Ilara knew it would be back. And next time, it wouldn't come wearing her brother's face. She looked at Cashin. We need answers. He met her eyes. Then we find the place where this all started. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was a promise. Morning broke gray and reluctant. The clouds hung low, as if uncertain whether to rain again or simply press down on the town until it flattened under the weight of something long overdue. Ilara stood in the kitchen, her damp clothes replaced with old ones salvaged from the upstairs closet. Caleb's flannel shirt, her mother's jeans. The familiarity didn't comfort her. It only deepened the feeling of being trapped in a life that had long since unraveled. Cashin sat at the table, a mug of bitter coffee between his hands. Neither of them had slept. Not really. She'd stare at the ceiling for hours, heart hammering each time the wind shifted, afraid to close her eyes and see that face again. Her brother's face, worn like a costume by something not even remotely human. He broke the silence. The place it started, it's the quarry, isn't it? She nodded. That's where he fell. Where he died, Cashin corrected softly. And where they found the first one, Victor Reese. Same place, same kind of disappearance. People said he just walked into the mist and never came back. Ilara leaned on the counter, tracing a crack in the tile with her thumb. The town buried it, called it grief or madness, anything but the truth. Caleb fell. Everyone said it was an accident, but I don't think it was. You think it called to him? Cashin asked. I think it chose him. That thought settled between them like smoke. Ilara turned her back to window, unwilling to meet her own reflection in the glass. She hated the way it looked now, haunted, stretched thin with questions that had no shape. They left an hour later, the town still silent. They took Cashin's truck, the tires crunching over wet gravel, as they wound through familiar streets that felt suddenly foreign. The woods flanked the road like a warning. Signs of life were few. An old man watching them from a porch, a curtain twitching in a second-story window, the hollow-eyed mannequins in the corner thrift shop that had never looked quite right. No one else was outside. The road to the quarry was blocked by a sagging chain-link fence, its keep-out sign flapping listlessly in the wind. Cashin cut the engine. You sure about this? No, she said, climbing out, but we don't have a choice. They slipped through a gap in the fence. The air changed instantly. Thicker, charged. Illyria could feel it pressing against her skin. Humming low and steady like a heartbeat too deep to hear, but too strong to ignore. The quarry loomed ahead, a massive wound carved into the earth. Water had partially filled it over the years, turning it into a black, still lake surrounded by broken rock and rusty machinery. The mist hovered just above the surface, unmoving, like breath held too long. Illyria led the way down a narrow path that curled around the pit. Every step brought the humming closer, not louder, but more present, like it lived just beneath the surface of the world. The hair on her arms stood up. She could feel it now, not just around them, but inside her. They reached the edge. The ground here was loose and wet, slick from years of erosion. She remembered this place with painful clarity. The night Caleb died, the panic, the way no one could explain why he'd gone out there alone. She turned to Cassian. I think it's under the water. He frowned. What is? The thing that took him. The thing that pretended to be him. It's not just hiding, it's waiting. Cassian's jaw worked. Then what does it want? She knelt, staring into the still blackness. It wants a door. He stared at her. A door. It can't cross on its own. Not fully. It needs someone to open it. Someone like Caleb. Or me. Cassian took a slow step back. Why you? I was there, she whispered. When he fell, I saw something. A shape in the water. I never told anyone. I was afraid no one would believe me. But it saw me too. The wind shifted. The mist on the quarry lake trembled. And then, without warning, something rose. Not a creature. Not in any shape she could describe. It was more like a void made visible. Fluid shadow writhing into form. It hovered just above the surface of the water. And with it came a sound deeper than thought, more pressure than noise. The humming transformed. Now a resonance that made her vision blur, and her thoughts scatter like startled birds. Cassian staggered back. Illyria, I see it, she said, her voice strange in her own ears. It's trying to speak. The void pulsed. And then an image, clear and terrible, filled her mind. Her standing at the edge of the water, hand outstretched, a ripple spreading from her palm. A gate opening. The town folding in on itself, swallowed piece by piece. She wrenched away, gasping. Cassian grabbed her shoulder. We need to go. No, she said. We need to seal it. How? She looked at him, her eyes full of something raw and sudden. I think I was supposed to die that night. The words hung there. Cassian stepped in front of her. Then you didn't. And you're here now. That means there's another way. Illyria looked out over the water. The void had stilled, as if listening. She felt it again, curious, waiting, not a monster, not entirely. A traveler, a predator, a need. I think I can talk to it, she said, voice shaking. But if I do, you need to be ready to pull me back. Define ready, Cassian muttered, already reaching for her hand. She took one last breath, stepped forward, and let the humming take her. The world fell away in a rush of blackened sound. And then silence,